I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings.
Dude, that's pretty cool.
Man, that is a sad clown.
Dude, that's pretty good.
This is The Gloom, bringing you weekly interviews with F3 Omaha packs, exploring their F3 experiences and finding those sticky elements that create the glue in the gloom.
Shout out to our sponsors Major Team Mortgage, Omaha Laser Dentistry, Exclusively Eye Care, and Liberty Core Real Estate. We appreciate their support.
Liberty Core Real Estate is your homegrown real estate broker. If you're looking to buy or sell real estate, whether personal or investment, Armando, aka Brian, and Megan Michaels' company is ready to serve you. With Command Center in Old Town Elkhorn and agents all throughout the metro, they are more than ready to guide and serve you in your next real estate endeavor. Whether your next move needs to happen now or in 5 years, call or text Armando at 402-770-2165 to get your questions answered. And a special offer for F3 Nation PAX members, Liberty Core will donate $250 to your sponsor of choosing for every closed transaction. Stop looking, start finding today with Liberty Core Real Estate.
Now let's get back to the gloom.
And we're back. We'd like to start off the intro that way. I don't know why we didn't really go anywhere, but here we are. We got another great leader, a guy with a lot of content, a lot of ideas on his mind, and a lot of impact through his leadership. So, a year ago, he launched a site called The Catalyst with a vision for creating the first F3 Omaha movement and Mumblechatter AO. We'll check in with him on how that's going. And also, I've just had a lot of conversations with this guy about the third F. So hopefully we'll be able to dive in to that today. So we got our man, Chucky. The other thing I have to comment on is Chucky has been on the show before, but at that time he was running and he hadn't showered. And, I think he talked a lot about, whispering through the wind or something. So we'll try to avoid duplicative content here, but maybe we can follow up with him on how things have changed since that interview. But man, you look good. We're also in person, so we get to see his smiling face in 3D back at us. But tell us, so how'd you get involved in F3? Who EH'd you? Do you remember the first workout? What was that like?
Yeah,
all those deeds.
It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me on. So F3 for me was a text message in the middle of the night from Birdman after I had he was coaching our kids' baseball team, or my oldest son's baseball team, and he just kind of reached out in the middle of the night and said, "Hey, this was about 9:30 at night. I was laying in bed with my wife, and he I thought it was odd. I was like, Owen's coach is texting me."
So you guys weren't boys or anything at the time?
No. Actually, I had not really known Birdman, Panios, any of those really the St. Vincent guys until F3, which is kind of ironic because we all go to the same school. But yeah, so I'm laying in bed and I'm like, that's just odd. Owen's baseball coach is texting me, asking me what I'm doing tomorrow morning. And she kind of looked at me and she thought that was a little odd too. And I was like, well, hey, nothing. What's going on? And then he had sent me a link to the F3 Omaha site. I can scoot in here. Sent me a link to the F3 Omaha site. And I read through it a little bit and I was like, oh, this is interesting. We were just coming off of COVID. They had shut down the gyms. I had a little routine that I was doing at Shadow for a little bit. And then I felt like I needed something, but I didn't know what that something was. And I was really feeling sort of isolated at the time. I know that it was a lot of family time and not a lot of ways to get, sort of outside of that and have good conversations outside of that and maybe, have other perspectives. So anyways, I get the text message and I'm like thinking to myself, well, okay. And he's like, well, we're going to pre-run too at this thing. And he kind of explained to me a little bit what it was through the text message. And so I was on a flyer. I said, I'm going to go to this thing. So I got up and I went to the berm and I thought it was the weirdest thing I'd ever done. Here's people, these guys are chanting a mantra, they're counting things, everything they count in the exercises, and yeah, I just thought it was really strange. But by the end of the workout, and I remember this very vividly, is when we got to the COT, this is what the hook was for me. When we got to the COT, we were doing the announcements and the prayers. I just thought it was super cool. Like, here's these guys giving a shit about other people, and they don't have to, right? They're here early in the morning, and they care about other people, and they're praying about other people. And then, then Birdman, he's over here, he's saying the closing prayer, and the guy's like in tears, right? And he's just so heartfelt and emotional. I'm like, looking around, I'm like, we're in a group of dudes, and here's a guy giving thanks, and he's crying. And so I just thought, wow, this is special, right? So, I'm kind of tearing up as I say it, but that was cool, and that kind of got me hooked. And then I went pretty hard after that. I think I pretty much went almost 6 days a week
Nice.
for a while there.
So how did we get the name Chucky?
So Patton named me, and he's this little big guy in the gloom, and he's gruff, and he's hooting and hollering, and I kind of had a chance to hang out with him during the workout that day or that morning, and as you go through the customs, I was just kind of talking about what my interests are, and I'd thrown out that I was a big Raiders fan, and Patton instantly was like, Chucky. And then somebody, I think Birdman was like, that's great, Chucky. So it was Chucky.
Awesome.
Ever since then.
So for when Birdman reached out, that initial commitment, was that just you kind of felt a little bit obligated, or were you really missing something you felt like, or what kind of drove you to say, yeah, sure, I'll be there?
It's
okay to say, like, this guy reached out and I felt kind of bad.
No, you know what? It wasn't. I think him extending the offer was absolutely. I don't know that I felt obligated to him. More than I was like, this is an offer, and I'm like, this is potentially something that is going to fill a void that I didn't know what it was, but I knew that getting up in the morning and going to work out, that's something I needed to do.
Yeah.
So it was more of this is something I need. I don't know what this is, but and then so when that came, it was always hindsight's 20/20, right? Sure. You always kind of look back and you're like, oh yeah, well, absolutely. God put me in a place where I needed that from that person at that time, and so it was great. Yeah.
When I look at your journey, and maybe it's just the things we've talked about, but I see this as been like a spiritual thing for you more so than a first F. But talk to us about first F. I mean, were you working out? Was it? I mean, because I can't remember. Did you play sports growing up? What's been that sort of picture? Because you're fairly fit. I mean, you're not as fit as me, but you're fit.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying. I took some powder for chiclets that didn't work, so I need to get a refund on that free bottle of protein.
Yeah.
No, I've always been an active person.
Yeah.
I played soccer at the Lincoln Southeast in Lincoln, which is the premier high school in the state at the time.
Yeah. Still is, right?
Yeah, still is. And
second to West.
Yeah. And so I played soccer. I had played some other things, and I had various interests, but I always kind of stayed active and engaged. And I think my level of fitness at the time, it's more of a mentally, I sort of knew hey, this is something I know I need physically. I need to be able to, realize the benefits of exercise, and mentally, physically. So I tried to do that, although doing it alone in a gym, staring at the mirror, not really having to plan your own things, and really that's a demotivating sort of factor when you go in there and it's just you're doing it for you.
Yeah.
And so I think part of the whole F3 thing, which was really appealing, is. And, from a physical fitness perspective, I was like, well, this is great. I can show up and I don't have to think about it. I can just go do the workout, which is great. But then also it's you're here with some guys that are pushing you too.
Right.
So you didn't get that at the gym, but you got that out in the gloom. And I got that a lot. I felt like that first day at the berm, I went really hard and I kind of I kind of overexerted myself. And the next day I was really sore, and I can't remember who it was, but I was running with them, and they were just just keep coming back. I mean, you're here, and I think somebody told me, and I keep repeating it, but you're the average of who you are out here, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of everybody has this fear of oh, I'm so out of shape, I can't go to a bunch of guys that are getting up in the morning. But when you get out there, you really are the average of the group that's out there.
Yeah. So did you know anyone when you showed up
I didn't know
obviously you had
anybody.
Birdman, right?
Yeah, so I didn't know anybody. So Birdman was the only one I knew, and I knew Pantyhose.
Okay.
But again, I didn't know those guys really well. I knew them through the. This was the start of my son's first like baseball team at that level at school, and so I had known of these guys, but I didn't know these guys. But obviously over the years I've gotten to know them a lot better now,
Sure.
and I don't know that I would have outside of F3, right? This is a very good vehicle for building relationships that I didn't think was possible. I think prior to F3,
Yeah.
Sort
Well,
of
it's just not set up
but-
that way, right? In normal society,
Yeah.
it's very difficult to just. Well, one, it's not very acceptable to be like, "Hey, can I be your friend?" Like, what are you doing? Like,
Oh, and
I
by the
wanna
way,
hang out.
I want to share something with you that is maybe shameful or maybe something that's intimate to me that I want to share with you,
Right.
Because I want your perspective, right?
Yeah.
That's hard to do if you're not in a space where
Well, I would even say for like we're a part of a small group together. It is even difficult in those times to connect at this type of level where F3's provided a vehicle, like you said, where what are you dealing with? I'm here to listen. Here's what I'm dealing with. Okay, receive me as I am.
Yeah.
Let's help each other work through it.
Yeah, in those church settings, I think there's not a common struggle, right? And so we create that with the beatdown.
Right.
And in my experience, right, that's why some of the hardest beatdowns, the conversation at coffee then is more vulnerable because you've just, like all the ego that guys typically show up with is just like, it's gone, right? We all know Hard Hat won the workout. And,
I cheated.
Yeah. But, on that note, so one of my vivid memories, because I've been doing this for a while. I've done IPC every year, and it can kind of get taxing, right, or old. But I remember this maybe 2 years ago. You were out there and just pushing me along the way. And I'm just curious, what, like, as you've been experiencing the group and all the different things, like, what are the things you would recommend a guy gets involved in to just kind of maintain or even accelerate fitness?
How do you keep it from getting stale?
Yeah. I think, and I don't. I think for me, like, it's thinking about those things you don't want to do, and like, there's a lot of times, like, it's the common joke if you work out with me, like, I hate monkey humpers. It's the most annoying exercise in earth, but everybody chooses monkey humpers.
Monkey humpers in tall grass, right?
So in tall grass, of course. I just think that you get out there, and actually Birdman and I had a conversation about this last night. It's like, when you get out there, you want to be pushed and you want to be challenged. And I think it's hard to do that on your own.
Yeah.
And so, like, you have to be almost in this type of setting enables you to go beyond what you want to do because that's what you're doing. And that's what the group's asking of you to do. And so I think, like, where this really can help you accelerate is like, I think it's embrace that suck of like, oh, I really don't want to do this. And this really sucks. But I'm looking around the gloom and everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
And I think there's an empowerment there where you feel you almost feel like if you're not doing it, you're letting everybody else down. Like, why should I not? So this is like pure pressure, but safe place to just kind of do those things that you don't like to do.
Yeah.
Well, and I know it's kind of a catch-22 for me when I'm there and I know the guys that are there. Like, yes, they're going to push me, but there's times where we get caught up in, well, let's just bullshit for a little bit.
Yeah.
It's more of a second step than the first step.
Yeah, and that is part of it. And you guys know, you've worked out with me. I love to horse around. Like, that's one of my favorite things to do is, I love to laugh and make people laugh. And so, yeah, I think there's also a healthy balance. Like, I think there's some workouts that I go to and I'm like, God, did we even work out?
Right.
And I'm like, shoot, I don't think we did. But partly that's because I'm not too bad about that because I always like to get a pre-run,
right?
Which is another thing.
Well, yeah, and I want to get to what I've dubbed Chucky is now as the Mumblechatter Megaphone, but we'll get to that when we talk about future leadership. But I want to also
I get that tatted on my.
You should. That's a requirement. We got an F3 Omaha brand. I don't know. Maybe the CSOP we'll call Yellowstone. We'll brand guys. But something else you went through this last year that I wanted to just get your perspective on is this injury. Because that was hard, right? Like, totally. I remember, just like showing up and I just remember thinking, like, what the heck are we going to do? Like, but talk us through your perspective on that. Cause it was a back injury.
Yeah.
If I remember right, you were kind of told, like, there's nothing you can do. You kind of your back is just going out. Or I don't know.
I had we had just come off of the retreat, the Impact retreat. Plug for 2023 if you guys want to go grab that.
Yeah.
But we were just coming off that retreat, and I just remember that weekend was just filled with burpees.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was the burpees that did it, but that's a pretty taxing weekend, both mentally, physically. And I think I just pushed myself really hard on that, which I think is okay.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, you sort of like you feel like you're a little bit invincible. You're like, I'm doing this, and I'm out here, and I'm fit. Like I can handle this. But sometimes you don't know the toll that takes on your body.
Right.
And I was definitely in that frame of mind. And then coming off of that, I sort of had a little nagging pain in my back, and then over the next, I kind of ignored it, and over the next few weeks, it just really started to get worse, and to the point where finally I had to go to the doctor because I was just I wasn't posting. I was starting to feel sorry for myself, and I just didn't like. I had always gotten you always injure your back, and like, okay, 2 weeks I'm good, it'll be good. 2 weeks passed, nothing, it was worse. And so it was the anti-pattern to everything I'd experienced in the past. And then so just knowing that it got worse, and it got to the point where like it hurt to like I couldn't be sitting in this chair right now without shooting pain and a bunch of other things. So it just got to the point where I couldn't just go about my daily activities, which kind of scared me, right? Yeah. So then I went to a back specialist, and he was like, we scanned everything, and he's like, it all looks good. He's like, likely what happened is you got injured, and at your age, they always throw in your age. I don't like that. Which I'm only 42, so like there's no, I don't think that should be a factor yet, but kind of just thrown in the, hey, you just need some physical therapy, we'll get you back on track, and blah blah blah. So I was like, okay, great, and he gave me some stretches. I started doing those, and it just didn't get any better. And we actually we had a family vacation. We were going to San Diego, and I was really concerned about that, being able to sit on the plane for that long.
Right.
And
you were consistently doing the stretches and everything, and trying.
Yeah, consistently trying to do what I could, But I really was. I was in my mind. I was like, I got to get out of this. I got to get out of this spot, because this is not a good spot for me. It's not getting better. It's not mentally getting better. Like, we got to get out of it. And it was almost like you went to go see, and I think I talked to Sparty about this, but like it was cataracts. You go to a specialist, and you sort of put all your faith in the specialist.
Right. Yeah.
So you're like, okay, I don't know, I don't have the answers, but this guy surely does. And when you leave there and nothing happens, you're sort of like let down, and then you're almost like filled with like a little bit more of despair, because you're like, oh my gosh, the guy who's supposed to know everything about me and my condition doesn't.
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, well, talking to everybody in the gloom, we talked to you extensively about it, and a lot of guys were like, hey, go try a chiropractor, and I'm like, that's a fringe science, I think that's just quack stuff, and pantyhose is pushing in.
According to the AMA.
Yeah.
We'll just say, we've talked about medical school and all that. But this is not the conspiracy part.
Yeah, no, yeah, yes. But then so I finally tried it, and I do feel like I got a lot of help there, so it was twofold. So I got on the mend, I started getting in there, and he really helped me, but he also told me, hey, you're 42, and like this is a new norm for you. You're not going to go back to your 20s or whatever you felt like. Because I kept telling him, like, I was here before, and I'm here now, and I want to be back here. And he's like, and he started to like almost try to reset my expectations. And hey, he's he's doing what he's doing, and I don't feel like there was anything malintent there. He was just trying to reset my expectations. Like, maybe you're not going to go back there. But I started to believe that, and then I remember running with you one day, and I was just like, and then because I got a little better, and I started running and I ran with you a couple of times, and you're just, and I think you reminded me, and I can't remember exactly how the conversation went, but I had gone through all these things, and it still wasn't working, and Plague just asked me, he's like, were you praying about it? And I was like, and I hadn't.
Yeah.
Like the one thing, right?
No.
That probably I've been doing from the beginning, I never had. And then I think the other question you asked me was like, well, are you praying about it? And then what do you think the purpose is? Why is this happened to you? And I never really I never went there, because I was always just, feel sorry for me. God, my back hurts. I can't, I got all these excuses to not post and all this stuff. So it's just like the the gravy train of like, all the things that your head goes through when you're injured just rained down on me. But then after that, I started praying about it. I started praying for purpose. And we talked a lot about runs after that. Like, what is this? What is this purpose? And, and I really think it was like a slow down kind of purpose, right? Like, I think I was kind of balls to the wall in a lot of things. And I think it like allowed me to kind of like, just recharge a little bit, slow down. But I guess to your point, like the injury was a lot of, it was a lot of things. But I think the biggest takeaway for me on the injury was that like, hey, every single one of these guys in the gloom, I honestly felt a lot of, hey, I'm going to let these guys down if I show up. So I'm just not going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to show up and run because I'm going to have a guy run slow with me.
Right.
Right. And you told me, you're like, hey, well, I think you should leave it up to them to decide. I don't think you're making a decision for them.
Right.
Right. And so it was totally true. So I think the thing about an injury is like, hey, all these guys are here for you.
Right.
And they'll do what they think is right to help you, whether that's running slow or staying with you or doing whatever, or even just grabbing coffee because you can't get out to the gloom.
Yeah. Right.
And then I think the faith component, I think it really kind of, it just gave me a little bit of like a pause of like, gosh, like I really am in a mode of thinking that that I am the controller of the things that I do. And like that I can make decisions that ultimately impact everything that goes on in my life. And I think yielding a little bit of that to God is helped me, because when you're at wit's end, and I was there, and nothing helped, I started praying.
Mm-hmm.
I started talking to God about it. I started talking about thinking about purpose. And you know what? I'm not kidding you. This is no shit. It was probably about a month after that. Like I had, probably shortly after that, I got re-injured. I was putting my kid in the car and I leaned in and I felt a pop and I dropped the kid in the car. I dropped the kid.
Seats, man.
So then I got re-injured and I went back to the chiropractor and, he told me the same story. And I'm like, gosh, dang, I was really down. I was like, this is just not working out for me. And then so then we went on a trip and I couldn't make the chiropractor visits.
Mm-hmm.
But over the trip, I was like, I didn't do anything special, but it just sort of like kind of went away. And then all of a sudden, like it was gone. And then when I mean gone, like I would always get to a point where it's like, oh, it feels better. I'm about 80%, 90% there.
You can still feel it.
I could still feel it.
Yeah.
And it just went from that to like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And it just felt perfect. And back to 100%.
Yeah.
So what do you think that was?
I think it was God. I think it was absolutely God. I think there was a period of time in my life, and I do think God, kind of works. And I know we're moving off the physical a little bit, but
that's great.
He's working in our lives in every aspect, but you got to pay attention.
Yeah.
Right.
Paying attention, I think, is the hardest part, because we get so heady. We think we are the ruler of our destiny.
Right.
And yeah, we get to make some decisions, but ultimately, like if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss those signals.
Yeah.
And you're going to take a wrong turn, and you're going to do things that are not right.
Yeah. Well, and then you were allowing, right? You sought medical attention, right? You were going to seek answers from who you thought were professionals, and once they didn't give it to you, instead of going, oh, I should be turning to God, the despair kind of starts to set in.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, yeah, and this is for cataracts. If we were on the Joe Rogan podcast, I'd be pulling up the internet and showing you, where the AMA was sued and lost the lawsuit to the, American Chiropractor Association.
Mm.
So I do want to just put a plug. We got guys like Crawl, who's an F3, who's a chiropractor.
Yeah.
But then also we have guys like I think you're talking about F3 Spinal Tap.
Yeah,
right.
You went to see Spinal Tap. Yeah.
So I think going to these different specialists, but then like you kind of mentioned, not putting the onus on them to define what ultimately this event means for you in the scheme of your life, right? Because this physical ailment, spiritual, impact seems like it was very beneficial.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is not the Joe Rogan podcast, so we won't be pulling that up for our viewers. Man, but that's for you, cataracts, if you listen. So anyway, I do want to talk about, and we'll get to the faith piece, but man, I hope guys are hearing just God's pursuit of you over the last few years is so cool to me. But the second F piece, and I want to get your thoughts on this, because you've built some great relationships throughout the years, but also you you create this atmosphere of second half. Like if you've been to a beatdown at the Berm and Chucky is there, you're going to leave feeling like you didn't probably get a workout, even though you did. And you're going to be laughing with these guys about the weirdest stuff. And I don't even know how it comes up. But talk us through like building relationships and then the Mumblechatter piece. Because you'll just like, it's the Mumblechatter megaphone, right?
Yeah.
You speak up, but it's that lets other guys know like, oh, we don't have to be so serious.
Yeah.
We can talk about,
I
don't know, pickle pushers and whatever. You know.
Yeah, finding the smallest hole in the dirt.
Yeah, they just aerate it.
Yeah. So the relationship piece. I've always been a big relationship guy. I love talking with people. I love meeting with people. I love the energy that comes off with like a good dialogue. So that was easy to do in the gloom. Pretty much like if you're in the gloom, somebody wants to have a conversation, or you don't just show up there because honestly, I don't think a lot of people show up there just because they're looking for a beatdown.
Sure.
They're looking for a lot more than just a beatdown. And
now, was that a day one thing that you recognized? Like day one, you're in, Birdman calls you out. Was there Mumblechatter that day, or was everyone taking it kind of serious?
If there was Mumblechatter, I wasn't paying attention because I would honestly, like I was in a bit of like prove myself mode, right? So I was going hard on everything.
Yeah.
And I think somebody made a comment at the end of the workout, like, "Geez, like what's going on with this guy?" And so, anyways, like then you learn. But I think when it hit me in the gloom was it in the circle of trust.
Right.
I think that's when I really found out that like, hey, this thing's more than just this. And then everyone after that, I was able to kind of come out and, kind of just be me out there.
Yeah. Well, it is hard to come in your first time.
Sure.
And just completely be
It's
open.
very intimidating.
Yeah. Right.
It's very intimidating. A group of guys that are confident, know what they're doing, or appear to know what they're, we all have this facade, but like, that's why we're there, because we don't know what we're doing.
Right.
And we need the help and guidance from each other. So building the relationships was always easy. And I think in the gloom, I always try to I feel like I try to grab a guy who doesn't say much, or, and try to get him open a little bit. But that part's a lot of fun to me. That's natural for me. And I think it's been a good, this has been a good outlet, for that. As far as what was the second part of your question?
Just the Mumblechatter.
The Mumblechatter.
Where does that come from? Like you just get the urge to give the.
I don't know. I got it. For those of you guys that know me, like I have a lot on my mind, and I'm very opinionated, and a lot of times I'm just trying to get a rouse out of somebody, right? I just want to get under somebody, and so just that natural dialogue. Like I was always like in high school and grade school, I was the shoot the shit kind of guy. Like I just love to make people laugh. I love to have laughs with people. And so I think that's just carried through as an adult. And I don't know if I classify myself as an adult.
Yeah.
My wife certainly doesn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was just natural because, when you're in the gloom and you're just grinding away, it's just natural to, oh, this sucks. What are we doing this for? Or, Sparty would always joke. Sparty would always come. He would always on the Murphs, the Monday morning Murph over Red Wings. He would always look at me and he'd be like, "You got to get a little lower on those push-ups or those Merkins." And I'm like, what is he judging my form for?
Yeah.
It seemed like every time I look up, he's right there. So, anyways, there's always that jabbing each other, but in a good way, right?
Yeah.
Because you're sort of in a way motivating because I can honestly say when he would say something like that, I would go lower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's just we're the air squats, and everybody jokes I don't air squat low. I don't like to. And then you find yourself going lower. So I think it's a fun way to still get people to push, but still have fun. Because at the end of the day, I just can't stress this enough. There is so much shit in this world for us to be depressed about.
Yeah.
And we gotta find times to be happy and be thankful.
Yeah.
Right. And I just don't see the point of wasting energy on the negativity. We get into some serious talks, and that's good. That's constructive. But I mean, there needs to be a moment of just some lightheartedness, and what a way to start the day to just kind of laugh and have fun with your friends.
You're loud, right? So then
I get told.
You hear people say "Oh, there's Chucky goes running his mouth again," right? But it's fun, And honestly, the entire vibe changes at those workouts. It'd be interesting if you went to another workout that if you could see a workout that you're not at. Right? It's just a different feel, and so that's sort of where from my perspective, it's it really adds. Yeah, it opens the door for other guys to be a little bit goofy. Because I know my biggest problem is I take myself too seriously all the time,
Yeah.
right? So like, and whether it be form, right? We should have good form, right? We should, like, that's important and whatever, but at the end of the day, like if we show up and if we show up even to life, right, and we're taking ourselves so seriously, we miss out on so much.
There's plenty of times to be serious. We don't need to do it all the time.
Well, and then I guess, do you have other outlets that allow you to kind of be this person? Are you this person at the office? You've got a team you said you manage. I mean, do you kind of take it in the same stead?
Yeah, I think to varying degrees, right? You have to be aware of your surroundings and the environment you're in. But yeah, I mean, I'm contrary to popular belief, I do have a filter and I can't turn it off.
The content's probably different. Right?
The content's a little different, but I do. Like I had this thing during COVID when you started speaking about work. I had this thing during COVID with my team that I would like we were all on these Zoom calls and it was just so weird and bizarre. Like what are we just doing on all these calls? And so I came up with like this thing where it's like, let's do a joke of the day.
Yeah.
And so I would just start the day with the meeting with like a dad joke.
Yeah.
And it kind of caught on, right? Yeah. And everyone kind of started, and it was just a good way to, again, laugh. Like people get so caught up in being so serious. And so I think it's important to laugh, it's a good exercise too.
What's interesting is I hear you say that the number of things I've taken from F3 and applied to work, this concept of being serious, I haven't. So it's an interesting thing, that maybe, but I know for a fact my team takes themselves too seriously. And I'm always racking my brain about why do we do that? Maybe it's just the lead by example of like.
I think you just got to, everything is about perspective. And we can get you're like you said, if you're too introspective, you can get too wrapped around the axle of what I'm doing is so important. And everybody should only worry about what I'm doing.
Right.
And the reality is when you pan out a little bit, like it's not that important.
Right.
Yeah. And you're not that important. I'm not saying this in a bad way, but we're just not that important.
Right.
And so like those conversations at work, like they're not that important either.
Right.
Yeah.
And so support people and be there for people, but also make it a lighthearted.
Well, and if you're taking yourself that serious and you think everything that I'm doing is so important that everyone should care about what I'm doing, you're missing out on developing your team.
Yeah.
Being a leader is, hey, I'm bringing this person along. They're going to be in a better position than when I picked them up. Yeah. And if you're so involved in what you've got going on, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're performing, some sort of life-saving surgery or you have a real specialist type position, like it's just like we can all kind of do everything a little bit. So once you remove this is so important, and it's really not, and then you find out the world doesn't fall apart around you, the house of cards is still up,
right?
Then it's all good.
Which is the whole concentric model, right? Of like focus on the relationships in closest proximity, because at the end of the day, like when I die, my job's getting posted the next week.
Yeah, you're replaceable.
Right? They're not gonna like even wait to think like, oh my gosh, can anybody else do that job?
Yeah.
They'll just post it and they'll hire and they'll move on.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what's sad about our culture, right? Is you see these people spend their whole life on their career,
and that's their identity.
And then when the career goes away, then all of a sudden, when the kids leave the house, right? Then their relationship with their spouse, so all this. Major Team Mortgage at Exarban Mortgage, specializing in home purchase and refinance home loans. Their mission is to purposely empower people to experience their good life through building wealth with real estate. Fellas, showing up in the gloom is no different than showing up for conversation around your future of building wealth with real estate. Join the action economy and get in the game with Sasquatch. Text or call John at 402-212-0149 to schedule a time today. NMLS number 1392750, equal housing lender. I do want to get your thoughts or just hear as you think about those relationships, right? Because second F kind of carries over into the concentric relationships. What's been the impact of F3 on your family, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's been good. Again, I think you're always going to be in a position where you deal with struggles and challenges at home just like you would in life.
Mm-hmm.
I think the huge value of F3 is that chances are if you come to F3 and there's something on your mind about home, or one of your kids is dealing with something, or you got an argument with your wife, guarantee another guy has dealt with that or is dealing with that.
Yeah.
And there's another perspective there for you to get to. And I can honestly tell you this. Every time I've come to F3 and I have had an argument or I've had something heavy on my heart, frustrated with somebody at home or someone in my life, you come to F3 and you have a conversation, you get something off your mind and you get a little another perspective, then all of a sudden you just feel like, hey, that wasn't that big of a deal. Let me go home and apologize and let's move past this. Right? Where sometimes you just can't get out of your own way to realize that that's even an opportunity. So I do feel like it prepares you and it helps triage sort of things going on in your life. You know?
Well, and I think you've got to, to your point, have the courage to even speak up and bring it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can come to F3 and not say anything. I've been a victim of that, right?
Yeah.
My brother deals with alcohol, and for months they'd ask for prayers. I wouldn't say anything. And, once you have the courage to actually say something, that's when you get the perspective.
Yeah.
That's when you're going to take something of value from it. You could be a guy that just shows up and works out, but you're missing out on a huge.
Yeah, but and you know, I think the other kind of flip side of the coin on that is that, again, it's not always about me,
sure,
or you. Like the fact that you show up and you even ask somebody, "What's going on with you, man? How are you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
That you're caring about somebody else, and all of a sudden all that stuff that you were so self-centeredly focused on. And just grinding over in your mind, like me, like now all of a sudden you've now channeled that into what does this person need, right? And so I think that it's a really good opportunity, and it's a good model for like the rest of it, the rest of your life. I mean,
there's been so many times where I'm in my head about something going on, and then you hear a prayer request, and that's like somebody's kid is sick or going through something, or I remember when Al Borland had all this stuff going on. With his son, and I think you just start thinking like, wow, the same children that I'm annoyed by most of the time, I need to be grateful for, because they're not.
I love those
they
messages.
Don't have brain tumors. They're not, and just the poise and grace of watching a man like that go through that scenario. You're like, wow, I need to. It's the problems in my head.
Be thankful for the mundane. Because it's good.
Yeah. Something else you said there. As you're thinking about. It's funny. I'm glad to hear I'm not the only guy that shows up and complains about an argument, and then I end up going home and apologizing because I've got a fresh perspective. But I'm curious too. Have you brought your boys out to workout 2.0 workout?
Not yet. My oldest would probably be. I think he's 11. I think he's probably close, but he's just not early right. It's hard to get him out. We've talked about it, but I think he's probably just too young yet. I would love to. They know all about it.
Yeah, what do they think?
They know all the names. They like they'll see pantyhose. They're like, that's pantyhose. I don't think they call Brad. They call him Birdman. And so because they hear my conversations with everybody, and I rarely use a first name.
Right.
So they love it. I think they love it. I think. And I'm always trying to I can't wait till I can bring them out, because I think there's just a whole nother, I think they're just too young mentally to understand all of this, some of the things that we do. But I think it's going to be a great example, for them to just realize that, because at a young age, for me, you don't think about, you think about friends, but you don't think about building relationships.
Right.
Sure.
And that's a skill set that, boy, if we could learn that a little earlier in life, that sure would be good. And so, I feel like a value to the younger generation to F3, it could be huge, right? Because they're really starting to see, and to your point, nobody can be told. You have to see, and you have to be led by example.
Right.
And to see a bunch of other dads and men in the gloom participating in this thing, and as a young kid, you're like, oh, and the more you go, it's just like, well, this is normal.
Yeah.
This is what you do, not. Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. I love when we interviewed Patton. One of the things he said was having Nemo in, right? So then his conversations would be, okay, this is your dad speaking.
Okay, this is Patton.
And then this is, your dad's telling you, be careful, try your best. And now I'm Patton, and now you got to go kick some ass. Just being able to kind of go into the F3, persona. And some of those would be fun.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. It's gonna be great. I think it'll be fun.
And so, what does your wife think?
I think my wife initially was, she thought it was a little weird. Like, what are you doing out? What are you doing out there? But I think now she understands.
Yeah.
I think there was a time where I was spending a lot of time in the gloom, and I think I have the right balance. Like for everybody, like there's always the right balance. Some guys can do it 7 days a week.
Right.
I think I'm kind of in that 3 days a week sweet spot. Sometimes I'll hit 4, but I don't know, 42. I'm just kind of like, I think you can absolutely do it. But I also, it's the right balance. And so I think like for my wife, like going every single day and maybe not being home right on time to be able to help with the kids and all that stuff. Like I want to be cognizant of that, and I want to be home for that. I want so like there will be days that I don't do coffee because I want to get home and get the kids up. So I think. Not from my wife's on board, but not from like a, like she cares about what we're doing. I think she thinks it's good. Yeah. Just making sure that doesn't conflict with
Well, some of it though, she's watched you, because if I understand, she's getting back into some routines of her own, right? Or trying to sort of pursue.
Yeah, and that's more on her. I mean, she's I've always encouraged everybody. I encourage my kids to go exercise, and everybody that I talk, because there's just so many health benefits. Yeah. And so so I think she's finding her own thing. She tried FIA. Yeah. I don't think she was a fan. Like for some women, it's just not for them.
Did she have some hot guy she was working out with?
Yeah. He was, 25 and built, had a 12 pack. Yeah. So I think that's, I think from a female perspective, what we do is kind of weird. Yeah. And I think there's a little bit of like, well, what do you mean you guys are getting up that early and going to work out? And I just think there's a different understanding there. But
I am curious, I guess, from a leadership perspective, just talking about your family, what impact has it had on how you lead your family, how you are as a husband, how you are as a father?
Well, I'll start with, I am 100% a work in progress and have not figured out any answers to any solutions. But I do feel like now, where as before I would just react, I find myself pausing more, having a more even demeanor, even towards like a kid acting out. Yeah. Like now I'm not so quick to be like, stop it, and yell, or, I'm like, hey, like, let this play out, chill out. Like, again, and I don't know if that's F3 or if that's God talking. I think maybe it's a little bit of both, but again, like if you believe everything you hear in the gloom, then and the way that you act in your home life is different, then you probably need a little correction. Yeah. So there's people leading by example there, and then I think you take that home, and in that next situation that comes up, and they always do, like you're like, oh, yeah, you gotta remember that. Yeah. So I think it absolutely transcends home life. Whether we apply it or not is up to us.
Yeah. Right.
But the tools are there, for sure.
Just kind of moving to the third F piece, and there's a lot in this space, I think, for you, but just would be curious, what's been your journey over the last few years when you think about growth and just your personal faith? Yeah, it's been a kind of a, and I apologize for all the guys that have heard me tell this in the gloom, but I grew up Catholic, and I've been in Lincoln, which is a very strict diocese, and I sort of grew up with like a fear of God. And actually, just recently, I had a conversation with my mom about this, because they're up in Omaha now. They want to be closer to us with the grandkids and everything, and she's doing the same thing, which is kind of ironic, right? Because growing up, very devout church every Sunday, we did everything we were supposed to do, but I walked away as a youth pretty turned off. Away from the Catholic, not from the Catholic Church, just away from faith. Sure. Like I was just like, what is that? Like that's not for me. Like, yeah, I believe in God, but you can be over here and I'll be over here. And so, I mean, sad, but good that, here I am 42 years into my life, that like I started this journey, and it really did kind of start, honestly, I think with the first Impact Retreat. Mm-hmm. I think that really gave me sort of I had a very open mind in there, and it gave me a lot of tools, a lot of perspective to like kind of go on this journey. And I think the first part is like, just like, do you want to? Right. Because there's a lot of distractions in life. Yeah. And if you let yourself, you can just get caught up. Totally. And next thing you know, you're 72 and
it's easier not to, right? It's
easier not to. And so I think my journey has been a pretty rocky one. But then again, as of a few years ago, I really kind of started. I made this kind of decision that hey, I want to know you, God, and I really want to get more involved in our relationship. And I didn't know how or what to do, but I knew that if I surrounded myself with guys in the gloom that were like-minded, that were doing that, living that, leading that example, that would start to stick. And so I think it has. And I think, again, definitely not there, not where I want to be. But I've had a lot of things in my life go the right way, and a lot of things that are clearer. And even when they don't go the right way, I don't feel like I'm so high or so low. Yeah. Right. So I had this a perfect example. So I really have been trying to, since the first retreat, I've been trying to focus on like, I want to see and talk to God. Like I hear all my friends talk, like I talk to God. God told me this today. I sat with Jesus on, on the beach in this exercise that they do, this, what's it called?
Guided meditation.
Guided meditation.
In Jesus encounter.
Yeah, Jesus encounter. Yep. And I just, I would always just see eyelids, and I could never connect that. And then Plague and I had this conversation at the last retreat where he's like, because I was pretty frustrated. I'm like, you guys are all like, I want this really bad, and I can't at all. I close my eyelids, I see nothing. I hear myself, and maybe that's because I talk too much. But
you hear the loudest voice.
I think God likes it. yeah. And Plague was like, well, maybe, and this is a perspective, honestly, in I think it was 40 years of my life, I'd never heard that, like, well, you're a pretty relational person, and so maybe you experience God through other people. Yeah. And I was like, well, no shit. Yeah. Like, that's got to be it, right? And
none of this is me, actually.
So I know, and I agree, and I don't believe it was either, right? Yeah. But I think that was the first example. Again, I said it earlier on. Is paying attention. Yeah. Half the battle is paying attention. You can think and want to do certain things, but if you don't listen, you're not going to get the benefit. And so I really took that to heart, and I came home. And I started, and I think it was, I don't know if it was that next Sunday, but we went to church, and I was, and we were sitting there, and we were at Mass, and there's one of the prayers that we all say together. Everybody stands and we all say it together. And oh, sorry, I got to back up. So I went to confession to Father Dan, which had been probably on record one of my best confessions. For all you Catholics, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you don't. But it was a really good, like, guided discussion. It was, it wasn't judgmental. It was a lot of constructive, like, hey, things like, you're a busy father, a busy husband. Like, you need to slow down. Like, you need to take time this week, and just want you to reflect on, like, all the good things in your life and all the beauty in your life, and, like, just slow down. Well, we go to Mass that Sunday. This is like on a Wednesday. We go to Mass that Sunday, and we're in this prayer, and in Mass, I'm usually like, I just ramble on ahead of everybody. I'm always like, one line ahead or something. And my son taps me, he says, Dad, slow down. Yeah. And so I'm like, I still get chills. Wow. That's cool. And so that was like, holy shit, I'm paying attention. And that's God. Yeah. Talking to me through my son.
That's cool.
And so, so there's neat. So there's been other examples of that. And, one of the other things, my wife and I, we've kind of never really been on the same faith page either. Like, not because we're different religions. Like, we just have never, like, and it's sad, we just have never really, like, had a good, faith conversation. Like, you just had, got busy with kids, and you just sort of, like, you get through life and you just ignore these things, right? Or you avoid them. And I'd always prayed, like, hey, I just wish, that we could become closer together in our faith. And every year if you're a Catholic, every year they do this thing called RCIA, and you can sign up for it. It's like a 7-month, call it a conversion course, but they teach you the catechism, and then you be confirmed as a Catholic after the 7 months on Easter. And I always prayed for this. I always prayed, like, hey, something to come in our life to help intercede in our relationship together with God. And then all of a sudden, and I've never asked my wife, to convert to Catholicism. It's never been a question. The boys have asked. The boys are like, why aren't you Catholic? Why don't you, do this stuff? And my wife, I got to be honest, is probably one of the more practicing Catholics that are non-Catholics of Catholics that I know.
Yeah.
I mean, been going to church as a family for 12 years. But anyways, all of a sudden, back in October, she's like, hey, I think I want to do RCIA, and I'm like, whoa, just blown away. And again, I think it's another opportunity where God is working through that, because this is not, because it's interesting, because I've never gone through RCIA. I've been a Catholic, but like what I'm finding out now is that it is a completely immersive experience of your relationship with God, but through the lens of a Catholic, right? But ultimately, it's your relationship with God, and so how beautiful is it that is happening? And then also, as I'm on my own faith journey, as a born and raised Catholic who fell away and have come back and I practice, but like not really fully understanding my own faith, and so being able to go through and relearn my faith, which what my kids are doing right now.
Yeah.
We're all on the same path right now.
That's cool.
Which is really cool, right? United in God. Like we're all doing it. We're all moving in the same direction. The whole family.
It's the timing of all that too.
Yeah.
Because now you're going through it with this lens and true desire of wanting to know and learn, and you're not going through it because it's just part of the ritual that you do, right? You're actually eager to learn.
As an adult, you're making a conscious decision.
Yeah, which is so cool.
It's pretty amazing.
I'm curious, so the impact retreat, and I would echo that, if guys, regardless of where you're at on your faith journey, I think you should check that out. But one of the other things you mentioned that I want to point out, right? So the Concentrica has your M in the center, and I believe from a faith perspective, God's using that relationship, and He calls it out in the Bible, right? Of like, that's the relationship I'm going to use to refine you into sort of who I created you to be. So, regardless of the religion or the church you decide to go to, I don't think you can go wrong by figuring out how can my wife and I get on the same page with what we believe, right? And just allowing those conversations, because they're not easy, allowing those conversations to sort of mold and refine, how you live your life, how you raise your kids. I'm so inspired by that.
Yeah, God doesn't want us to do it alone.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
He wants a relationship with us, but He doesn't want us to walk this earth and just be in our own little world with Him.
Yeah. So when you think about sort of F3 and this journey, what we often hear on this show, it's weird calling this a show, but what we often hear is sort of the beginning of your story. So I'm curious how I grew up Catholic, went to church, fell away, and then sort of, and I'm kind of searching. So I think in F3 we try to like give guys opportunities to aid in that search, right? To get you back in some sort of relationship with a higher power. Yeah. What do you think in F3 has been helpful the most? Like impact retreat, but are there other things that you feel like if a guy is fallen away or maybe searching, what kind of things should he be doing?
Yeah, I think again, I'm going to go back to, you got to pay attention, right? If you recognize this, I think pay attention. Like there's guys praying for people, and I've talked to guys that don't necessarily believe in God in F3, but they love that part. Yeah. Right. They love and that's what God calls us to do, right? To care for other people and help other people. I think you absolutely have to get to, what's been helpful for me again is, and I mentioned this earlier, is surrounding myself with like-minded people. So like anything in life, if you want to do something, what's the first thing you do? You go find somebody who knows how to do it, right? And you go ask him, or you go learn about it. Yeah. Right. So I think like there's a set of guys that I believe are very, very faith based. They live what they believe. And I just chose to surround myself with those kinds of people. Yeah. So I think, absolutely. If you're in search of, I think first part is like, you gotta know it. You gotta want it. I think it's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to do it, which is the hard work, right? The hard work of building a relationship. But I think there is for any thing that somebody's looking for, in their life, I think there's a guy in F3 that you could find to help you along with that.
Yeah.
So on your journey here, like, what is your biggest struggle? So I know hey, I really want to know who God is. You've been doing these things. You're attaching yourself to people that do know, so that you can learn from them. But as you continue to practice and as you continue to search, you're going through with your wife. What still is a continued struggle for you?
I think it's me. It's getting out of my own way. It's getting it's getting out of, again, thinking that I'm fully in control of my life. That is the biggest headache. Whenever you peel it all back, the arguments, the discussions, the anything, like the internalizing. It's me. It's like getting out of the way of myself is my biggest challenge. And I do think this group absolutely helps with that, because there's reminders everywhere you look that it's not about me. I think that is absolutely, the struggle's real, and I don't know that I'll ever overcome that. I think when I start to feel like I'm thinking of others more than I'm thinking of myself, I think that's getting closer. Yeah.
Well, it's a daily.
It's every thought. It's every action, right? Yeah. There's absolutely a struggle, and like, again, I think you have to surround yourself with people that are emulating the behavior that you want.
Right.
Yeah. I used to have this mindset where I thought I had to wake up and sort of beat the ego out of myself. And that was what the beat down or the run or the whatever was for. And I think just in the last year,
then he got more shape, and then he could.
Well, then his fitness score got so high that he couldn't get any higher.
Now I'm at
his VO2 max or whatever the heck he's tracking.
Yeah. Now I'm at a point where, I feel like I can wake up. I still need to work out, but if I get interrupted during the workout, I'm less frustrated by it. Yeah. But it's not every day, right? Like last weekend, I had on my mind, like, okay, I'm watching the girls in the morning. I'm going to work out at noon, and then something came up, or somebody didn't nap the way I thought they needed to, and my workout, I felt like got gypped, and I still like will kind of sink back into this like where my mind is just pissed, for no apparent reason, and ultimately it's because the reality I'm living in doesn't align with sort of what my ego thinks it's entitled to for the day. And so, like, every day it's like, how can I just get out of my way? I love how you said that. Man, maybe we'll have you back for a third interview, because there's so much great insight that you're sharing. But we do want to talk about leadership, right? So we have this mission, right? We exist to really reinvigorate or invigorate male community leadership. We do that through VQs and through leading, a site, and you obviously got to launch Catalyst, which has been great. But just talk us through sort of leadership from the F3 lens. Do you think it's added value for you that you've been able to translate other places, or what's that?
Absolutely. That whole concept, seeing a guy get in there in the middle and own that. I just remember seeing somebody own that workout and just be so in charge, and people really draw into that. I think it's absolutely an opportunity for guys to don't think they have that in them to go experience that. Yeah. And I know it was always a big daunting. I remember my VQ. It was like I was a nervous wreck, and I overplanned, and I did this workout that was way too hard.
Where was it at?
It was at Red Wings.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, it wasn't Red Wings. What's the
Coronado?
No, what's the is Wednesday Red Wings? What is it Wednesday now?
Top Rope.
Okay. Top Rope. Why do we have so many names for the one site? It drives me nuts. Yeah. Somebody change that. Yeah. So it was Top Rope, and I had everything planned out, and it was I called it the Gruden Grinder. John Gruden. It's an ode to Chucky. Anyways, and we had had the football field set up, and it was a hard workout, but it had snowed 6 inches the night before.
Oh, nice.
And I'm like, and I know everybody knows I don't like moisture. Out in the gloom. Yeah. I didn't know it at the time, but that really maybe that was the point at which I realized I didn't like to be wet.
That's it. But, that's your beef with moisture.
But I think, like, as a guy who felt very comfortable around other people, and a leader at work, I was nervous as hell. Yeah. Like that was a grind to get through that, and just to, like, because I think there's so much, you feel like you have so much expectation, and that people have expectations of you. Like, this has got to be great. I want to do, spending my time out here. And that's all BS, right? Like, yeah, you want to have a good workout, but people are there more than just the workout, as we talked about. So that was like my first real take in F3 is like, hey, here's my VQ. This is what leadership's like. And I still get nervous. I don't know if you guys do. Every Q, I can Q more, but maybe that's why I'm still nervous. But like, I get, I love that charge, the energy I feel when I'm leading a group of guys.
Yeah.
And then that kind of, but I didn't really ever feel like I I could be a Q, like a side Q.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like that was in the cards for me, just because I looked at guys like Paniel's play, like all these guys that were like, Birdman, like these are him, like these are these are leaders, and these guys have their shit together. I don't, and like I can't lead a site, and selfishly I was like, I don't want to, because like that's too much work. Like that's not for me, because it's gonna affect me.
Yeah.
Getting out of my own way. So anyways, it took a while, but like, Plague, Pantyhose, Sparty, they approached me, and it was a difficult conversation, because they had been planning that they wanted a site.
Yeah.
And I didn't know about the planning until they approached me about it. But like, then we started talking about it, and I was kind of like, I don't know if I can do this. And every single one of those guys was like, you absolutely can. And they all believed in me. And I think that's the self-doubt is real. And for guys that are thinking that they can't do this, or guys that are, thinking that it's too much time, it's none of those. It's absolutely the most rewarding thing in F3. I miss it. I hand it off to a great guy, and it'll be fine, assuming it doesn't turn into a merch site.
Yeah. Which we don't know yet.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's the opportunities for leadership in F3 are immense. I mean, there's an entire ecosystem, whether it's giving, whether it's leading a workout, whether it's leading a site, whether it's planning a CSOP, like there are 1,000,001 opportunities for folks to get involved at a leadership capacity in F3. So I encourage guys to go out and do that. It's very rewarding. I know that site. The other thing about that site was when I first joined F3, you didn't do a workout without the pre-run. The pre-run was, you had to do the pre-run. And that is where I got the most value out of it. So a plug for all you guys that don't pre-run. Pre-run, because those conversations on that, and you guys know this, those conversations on that pre-run, those just like the laughs and the talks, they're so valuable, and it's so fun. Just like, it's like you're having coffee, but you're just running with your good buddies. And so I wanted guys to experience that at Catalyst. The guys who don't normally do that, whether it was rucking or, I think LPC rode a bike for a little bit. Yeah. Maybe Hard Hat did. Yeah, you just get that opportunity to learn more about each other. And so that was the reason, but it was a really good opportunity. Sad to see it go, but it's like anything. Leadership can't last too long here. You need, because the way that we operate, it needs new blood. All these sites need new blood.
Yeah.
Like, you could tell it was kind of,
Well, so something I got to experience yesterday that you will get to experience. So Paradise Island turned 5, and Tight Lip let me queue. And, I'm sitting there doing this COT, and we're talking about equipping leaders. And I'm just thinking, man, when we launched this site, we had no idea or vision of the impact it would still be having 5 years later.
Yeah.
Like, you just can't even, I can't even tell you what that feels like to go and be a part of it, and to know, like, all of the weeks I'm not there anymore, they're still
running,
getting together. It's still going, and that only happens because we transitioned the leadership. If I was the site queue for 5 straight years,
the thing would have died for
it. Would have died. I mean,
we wouldn't be having this podcast.
There were 6 guys there when I launched it, and there were 24 guys. I mean, so it'll be cool for you to see that over time. And I do want to get your thoughts. I mean, tell us about Nailed It as the successor.
He's a great guy. When you think about a true him, Nailed It's that guy. Nailed It is a guy that is like, he's quiet, he's reserved, but literally the guy will do anything. And at the drop of a hat, I can't tell you how many times I've just called him and not asked, but been offered like, oh, hey, I want to help you with that. I'll come over right now and do it. Like, I know that, we've talked, Birdman has some stuff going on in his house, and Nailed It was over there like the next day with like a trailer and like, hey, like, I'm here to help. Yeah. So he's just the kind of guy that like exactly what a sideQ should be. The guy that's gonna do whatever he needs to do to make sure that the guys are taken care of. Mm-hmm. And so I think just like he does in his personal life, I think he's gonna take care of that site. Just like in that same mode. So.
But he doesn't like running, really.
He doesn't like running. He hates running. But, and that's actually a good point, because I didn't like running before I started F3. Just as a disclaimer. I know people think I'm a runner. I'm really not. Like, I was the guy, like, I hate running. Yeah. But I love those conversations. And then, again, like anything, if you practice it enough, if you do it enough, all of a sudden you do it and it doesn't suck. Right. So I tell Nailed It the same thing. You're the IQ of a running AO. Yeah. And while he will still say he's not a runner, he runs. Yeah. He's great, and I loved it. Yesterday he had a lot of the ruckers were out there, good. Which is great, right? Yeah. And so that's what we want, because that site is not just for runners. Movement. It's for the walk. It's the movement Mumblechatter AO, right? Yeah. I mean, it's serving its purpose, and I love the fact, and that was part of the reason like Nailed It, like why I was so drawn to him for this, is because he isn't a runner or doesn't think he's a runner, and that is what we need at that site.
Yeah. So explain this movement Mumblechatter AO concept.
I think it just, so when we talk about the pre-run and even guys that ruck, that's where some of this best second app and stuff occurs. Yeah. And so really the goal is we just want a place where guys can move. It's going to be an hour. And whether it's rucking, biking's a little hard to talk, I would guess. But I don't know. Not
LPC did it when he had his foot surgery.
But
right like, next to us.
I think we just wanted a place to really hone in on like an hour of really good fellowship while you're moving. Yeah. And whatever the movement was, we didn't really care. And I think that really was Chucky's vision. Yeah. Yeah, because if you remove, and I always tell guys, it's the easiest VQ site in F3. Totally.
Because there's nothing else to plan other than COT.
Right.
And so it really does just kind of remove all of the extra stuff.
Yep.
So
absolutely. Yeah. Hey, this has been really good. I am curious. One of the things we like to get, and we maybe already heard this from you a little bit, but what would you say? Is like just super simple advice for a guy in F3. Maybe it's a guy who's leading a site. Maybe it's a guy who just started. But anything that pops up as advice. I think.
Yeah. I think my biggest advice, just in general, is just go after the things that you don't think you can do. Just embrace the suck in that respect, and just try to get better. I mean, I think we're all trying to get better, but I think we sometimes get so caught up in ourselves that we forget that we're just trying to get better at the next guy.
Yeah.
So just get after it.
Okay. I like it. I was thinking you would say pay attention, but
but I don't like to pay attention, so I'm not going to advise that to anybody.
Yeah. Well, and then kind of the last question we'll wrap up with is just sort of so taking into account this whole amazing journey that you've been on. Where do you need support, encouragement, prayers today? Like when somebody sees you out there in the gloom, what's something they could encourage you on?
Yeah, I think just just remind me that to keep going. That it isn't that don't take it too seriously. Keep your head up.
Yeah,
keep going.
Awesome.
Yeah,
love it, man. Hey, this has been good. We'll I don't know. We got to book a third episode. I feel like
first in F3 history.
We even missed a few. Yeah. Well, we'll get you out there. All right, let's do a little name rama.
Let's do it.
Brandon Flearty, 37. The Plague.
The Plague. Ah! John Mover, 32. Pony Express.
Hey.
Yeah. Brandon Pansy, 42. Chucky.
And we don't have I can't believe you don't have a thing after your name, like a.
Somebody did something at one point. I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was You Suck. I don't know.
That's awesome. Nice. Thanks, fellas.